So this is Boruch Fleischman here. I'm at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel, and I thought we might have some fun today to look at our first time that we're really looking at a Rishash Siddur. This is Siddur, which is probably the most popular of the different versions of the Rishash. The Rishash, it's called Siddur Rehovos HaNahar. It's put out by a group led by the Shmueli brothers, who I have not met and I don't know much about. But everybody who's learns Kabbalah in Eretz Yisrael, of course, knows them very well. Sephardim in general just know the name because how intricately uh, aligned with Kabbalah they are. Now, just let me show you something that we're talking about in the Amida. Let's understand that this is just a little lark of a view of what Baruch Hu looks like in the Rishash Siddur. So here we have Baruch Hu, and then what happens when you say that word or all these other ideas, which can be explained, it's not the place for right now, but I want to get you the idea that when you say the word Baruch Hu, many things happen. And as a result of that, you're now in Olam Briyah. So all of these different parts and all these different things that we see over here, let me just go through them real quickly. They're all meditations that can be analyzed and put together, and they need to be put together in different formats. Now, as we move on, and we say finally they get to the word Yotzer or Vore Choshe, right? So we get to that if you're davening and you don't have this sitter, you get to it real quick. But over here, it takes a little. You have to go through the flow of all of this energy. These are like musical notes. And they're not musical notes. They're actually notes of light, and different kinds of combinations of light and their flows. So he says over here, this is what I want to get to in the Olam of Yetzirah. You have the concept of the Hechelos. So I said Olam Briyah is what I meant. You have the concept of the Hechelos. The Hechelos means you start at the bottom. And as we're building in the prayer, and we say the prayer Yotzer Or, we're at the stage which is called the Hechel, the palace of Livnus HaSapir. I'm not going to get into Livnus, I think, is the whiteness of the sapphire, but I'm not sure that I remember what it is. And what is Livnus HaSapir? Well, it's the lowest step. It's called the Yesod and the Malchus of Zer Anpin of Olam HaBriyah, because we are in Briyah right now, as we're saying, getting closer to the Kriya Shema. Then we turn the page, and you get to the phrase Kael Baruch, and then Deya. Now, these are the oros that I'm talking about there. It's a lot to be discussed in the Rishash. No question. I'm only want to come and show you the difference in the Hechelos. So the next Hechel, as we're moving up a step closer to Atzilus, whereas it's called Etzem HaShemayim, Hechel Etzem Shemayim, which represents the Hod of Zer Anpin Abriya. Just imagine Zer Anpin has 6 kitzvos, and you're at the Hod. Now we go through Kedusha. There's some different other things here, and let me see what the next one is, if I miss one. Okay, and the next one is the Hechel Noga. It's the Hechel Noga of Zer Anpin de Briyah. So as you see, we're moving up. The next one is the Hechel Zechus. It goes on to this Hamachadish Betuvo. That one went with Kael Baruch. So as we progress through, we're having the idea going on that we are moving up closer and closer to Olam Atzilut. And then finally we get to the Hechel Abba, which is the Chesed of the Zer Anpin of Briyah. So this goes on with the Abbas. When we say the Abbas Olam, and we're about to get now to the Kriya Shema, so then we're at this place called Abba. So so it says, we say, the Yira as Ula as Shimcha. This is the list of Nusach Sfard. He said, not Nusach Sfard, it's Sfardi. Boruch Atah Hashem, HaBocher B'Ramo Yisrael Be'ab. That's where we're at this point. Now, I'm going to leave through the Shema pretty quickly because there's a lot going on in the Rishash there. What I want to do is introduce us to some of the ideas that we have in regards to the Amida, which is in the beginning of Olam Atzilus. So he says, we are right now in Olam of Briyah, and we're saying Baruch Shem Kavod, and then we're going Malchusel. So we're about to say the Kriya Shema, and then we go into the Kriya Shema. Now, the Kriya Shema is a whole Indian by itself, and of course that's part of our limud but we'll get to that. Now, when you get done with the Kriya Shema, and you got to the place right before Emes V'Yatziv, so you said the word Emes came out. Now you're in a different place. You're in a different Heichel. You moved up. You said the Kriya Shema. As we have learned in the Kriya Shema, you have brought in all of the Mochin of Katnas, and as a result of that, on the word Echad, you were able to bring in, and this has to do with a different concept because they call the Arba Mitzvahs based in, but we're not talking about that right now. He says then you begin a new level on the because of the Mochin that came in. Now you're at a much higher level. So in the word emes, this is the Heichel of Ratzon, the Teferes, the Zer Anpin de Briyah. So this is the special Heichel. You're moving up, the able of desire or acceptability, the Zer Anpin de Briyah. Then after that, you move up to the Heichel Livnas HaSapir. So Livnas HaSapir, if you remember back to the early part, that's the first step. But now we're talking about the first step in the Heichel of Ratzon, because now we're in one particular Heichel, and it's going to be divided up by itself. So we don't have to memorize this. It's just a general idea to give us an idea how we are moving up. We moved up to the Heichel of Ratzon. Then we said Emes V'Yatziv, and we go through that. And then we come to another Emes. We get to the Emes, it's Etzem Shemayim. It's another step up, but it's step up within a step itself, which is called the Heichel of Ratzon. This is the Heichel of Ratzon, Azir Anpin to Briyah. We're still in Briyah. Let's look at another one. This here, when we get to the word, this phrase, Ala Rishonim Ba'ala Acharonim, Davar Tov V'Kayim Be'emes, on the word emes again, you have the Heichel Noga. This is the Noga, which is the Netzach of the Heichel of Ratzon. So we're all in this Heichel of Ratzon. The next time we say Emes, which is the Emuna Chofeli Avor Emes, when we say it again, it's the Heichel of Ratzon. B'schus, it's a Heichel called Ratzon B'schus Va'ava, all of them together, which should represent the Chesed Gevurah to the Teferes, the Heichel of Ratzon, moving up as their Anpin de Briyah. Now we have another one. When we get to the word Ezras, this brings in the Teferes of another Heichel, which is a Heichel that is an aspect of the Heichel called Kachikachim, which is also the Kachba, the Zer Anpin de Briyah. Now we're up at the very top of the Zer Anpin of the Briyah. Remember, Zer Anpin is composed in Godless, and he has now Mochin of Godless of Kochav, or we call it Chabad Chagat Nai. It has a complete Rosh, Tov, and Sof. So here we now in the very top of it, and we're looking at the bodily part at the top, which is the Teferes of the Kochikochin of the Kachba, the Zer Anpin de Briyah. Now we're moving all the way along, and now we come to that. Let me just skip back after we got to that place, to the Kachbad, or that is the Chabad. So that's his words. Let me get his rest. They are, did I miss something? The Heichel Hakeser, the Heichel Kachikachim. Let me go through it again. Did I skip something? Yeah, I did. When you get to this phrase, Bar Barum Olam Moshavechu Mishpatecha B'Tzidkascha Ad Apsei Aretz, and then you say the word Emes again, this is an indication you're on another step, but you're in a step within a step. It's the Das of the Heichel Kachikachim, the Zer Anpin de Briyah, and it's also part of the Heichel Aratzah. Then we have another word, emes. Ashrei ish yishman mitzosecha b'sarascha debaruch yasim b'dibo, and then it says emes. This is the bina. You moved up from Teferes. Now you're in bina. So you moved up from das, and now you're in bina of the Heichel Kachikachim, the Zer Anpin de Briyah. So imagine you're in this top Heichel, which is Kachikachim. And now you're moving up to the moving up. It's all part of the Heichel of Ratzon. Then he says the last one here is you say emes again. That's the second to last, rather. Sorry, it's the Chochma, the Heichel of Kachikachim, the Zer Anpin de Briyah, the Heichel of Ratzon. Then let's go to the next one. So it says the Heichel of Ratzon has several subparts, and one subpart is the Kachikachim, and then the Kachikachim is broken down into Chabad Chagat Nai. This is the Kasser, the Heichel Kachikachim of Zer Anpin de Briyah, and it's also part of the Heichel of Ratzon. Now, I'm not doing this, it's not a test. I'm just doing it to give us an idea of what actually happens in the Shemona Esrei. All of this we can discuss if there's an interest in learning more of the Rishah. right now just want to give an idea that was based on what we had yesterday. Now, let me see if I can find this easily. Birchos Avos. This is where we came to yesterday. Let me see if I got the right place. I got a mark here. So we had a question about the phrase Adnis Fasai Tiftach. If it's not a hepsek, if it's not making a hepsek between Geula and Tefillah, which we understand is something that we absolutely cannot do. So then where is Adnis Fasai Tiftach? And that point over there was to bring us the idea at the very top Heichel, the Heichel of Kadshi Kadshim, there's an intermediate place which is called Adnis Fasai Tiftach. Now what actually happens in the Rishash Siddur when you say these words, it is a matter of sweetening. Because we understand that all the shefa that is coming upwards has to be sweetened because it's coming from the world of Asiyah, into Yitzira, and then to Briyah, and then finally, this is a lot of schmutz picked up along the way as well, which we are trying to refine, that schmutz, so that we can bring it into Olam Atzilus. So he said, "V'hine pasuk zeh shel Adnis Fasai Tiftach hu keneged Heichul Kodesh." It corresponds to this phrase, Heichul Kodesh Kadashin Shibabriya Mamish. So that's what we saw over there, and we just saw that idea. We understand it's the top Heichul in Olam Abriya. Ki hine sod shem Adni hu kan bebriya Kamoshim bevor v'tzleinu. Now, that particular fact I don't know. He wants to say that the idea of Adni really always refers to Malchus. So now what is he saying here? He says, well, where do we see the word Adni actually worked? We see it in Olam Abriya. So when you say the word Adni Safasa, the first word is Adni, he says you're still in the old world, in the world of Briyah. So he says, let me read it again, Ki hine sod shem Adni hu kan babriya. Kamoshim bevor v'tzleinu, this has been explained. The Vashar Shemus of Spheros, with all there's also part of the Eitz Chaim, which is the shar called Sefer Spheros. The Kniska b'Hagdama Sefer Hatikunim, also this is part of the Zohar. He said, Ki Shem Adni hu bebriya. That name actually refers to the aspect of Malchus, which is still not in Atzilus, it's still part of Briyah. Mishum that Taman lav ihu v'kinuy chad, because what does that mean? He said because in Briyah, the actual unity of oneness is not present. There's still a separation. And his words are, the Taman there, lav ihu v'kinuyahu, it, and also its substitute names or its nicknames are not one. In other words, there's no oneness there. There are different parts. V'hine, muchrachu, so it's necessary, shebetachila ya'alo el heichul kodesh hakadosh the Briyah, that the prayers that we are bringing up when we get through the Kriya Shema, we bring in the beginning of the Mochin, the Godless, which we're going to learn a lot more about that. As we begin, we are still though in Briyah, even though we have Mochin, the Godless. Godless really refers to Atzilus. Kadei she'achar kach, because what we want to accomplish is for that after this, Misham Ya'alo El Atzilus will be able to move up into Atzilus. Tiknu Pasuk Zekan. So therefore, this Pasuk is there that is Adnis Fasat, is to tell you that it's like a personal thing. You Malchus, who are still lost in but you're at the very top of Briyah, but you're still not one. There's still no oneness there. So we mention your name and we try to pour sweetness onto that, in order to bring it completely into Atzilus. Now let's see what the words of the Tivukavanas are, starting on number Ches. Here we are right here. We'll be reading this light print. It says, Pasuk Zeh, this Pasuk, he says, Adni Sfasai Tiftach, Hu Adayim Behechel Kodesh HaKadoshim. It's still in that Heichul Kodesh HaKadoshim, but in Olam HaBriyah, in the Olam called Briyah. And he said, Baruch Atah Hashem, Hu Ba'olam Atzilus. So when you get to the actual Baruch Hashem, Elokeinu Be'elokei Abateinu, those are words that refer to Atzilus. So when you say the word Adni, you're making a reach into Olam HaBriyah with the idea of pulling that ultimate little piece of Kedusha, which is in Briyah, up into Atzilus. The Oz Ta'ala HaMalchus, the Olam Atzilus, and this will cause Malchus, which is Adni, to come into Atzilus. Sheba'ofen Klali, so if you look at it in general, Briyah hu Shem Adni. So that's a statement that he made before, that Briyah is actually refers to the name Adni. Now, I never heard that phrase before. Here he says it. Atzilus hu Shem Aviyah, Havaya. Okay, so he wants to say Malchus has different names. The names of Malchus can change. So your mom could be different moms. It could be a mom in Olam Abriya when you're having, I'm speaking of Malchus as being a mom, that metaphor. In Olam Abriya, she's really not connected 100% to her husband. And that's what we'll see as we go along. But Tzilus hu Shem Avaya, but there it's the name Avaya Yudke Vavke, which is indication of the mating with Zeranpin. Be'etz Chaim and Shara Shemos over this Ba'aro calls Shemos a Kalim, the Briyah, it says, explains over there all the names of the Kalim of Briyah and Yitzira and Asiyah. B'sham Kosov of Rav Shemos a Kalim shall Briyah Haim Adni. So again, these are the words. See, the words are, the Rav writes over there that the Shemos of all of the Kalim, the vessels that hold light, are really in Briyah, they're the name Adni. This is the vessel that holds the light in Olam HaBriyah. So that same idea, which I have to, kind of process, I'm not sure what it means, but it means that all the names of the Kalim that hold light in Olam HaBriyah are called Adni. Now this Adni, we want to bring it into Atzilus. Koloma sheba Olam HaAtzilus, hu ihu v'chiyuhi vuhi v'garmuhi chad b'hoin. So he says like this, is that over there in Briyah, there's a separation between Adni and the Kalim, and so on and so forth. They're really not incorporated, especially with the male aspect. Koloma sheba olam atzilus, who, that is he, ihu, bihibuhi, all of his reality, begarmuhi, in essence, is chad bahon, is one with all other realities. Behind, let's try to understand what he meant. Sheba'olam Atzilus hu kulu alokus gamur. It's completely and totally godliness. It's oneness in every state. Gama orav v'gama kalim b'kol b'chinoseichim. That we're talking about the lights of the Ein Sof joined together with all of the kalim. They're all one. B'kol b'chinoseichim. B'bechinas hu ushmo echad. This is the concept that we have, like we say this in Aleinu. Hashem echad ushmo echad. It means to say that everything is in complete oneness, which is also the concept, which we see other places, of the uniting of the male and female parts of reality into one. It looks like Adam and Eve were originally. It's echad shuhu achdus gamor, complete oneness. The emotion is Bayersham Be'etz Chaim explained over there. So therefore, Havaya, the name Havaya really refers to Zir Anpen, inside of the nukva, which is the concept of yichud. So those things that are created by different names of the children. In Olam Abriya, so then we have different names, but they're all the same thing. They're all the same aspect. So but when we come into Olam Abriya, who Adon al Boruch. So there you have a different thing. The name and its aspects are not one. There you have a master, and then you have what the master created, which are two different entities. He says, Sheshem Adon Misyaches al Nivroim v'Nifradim. So he says the name Adon means it's like a control. So if one entity or one bechina is controlling another one, then it's separate from it. So he says, Shem Adon Misyaches al Nivroim Nifradim, at different created parts. Behind Nivroim, Nikroim Shem Bekinu Yavadim, the Nikroim will then be called by different names of the servants of the Adon. The Chem Bebriyah Hu Shem Adni. So therefore, that's the reason he's explaining that Adni, which is related to the word din, with an aleph on it, which sweetens it. So it's not the same din, but at any rate, it's still by itself controlling what's below it. And now he adds another idea. He said because it's impossible for all of the shafa that is moving upwards through the world, through Asiyah, Yitzira, and Briyah, now coming to Olam Atzilus, he says it's impossible she'after la'alos b'bas achas, that all of the shefa that's down below should be able to come in at one time. Min heichel haratzon the olam atzilus, from that very top heichel, which is called the heichel of ratzon, and that part of the top part of that heichel, which is called the kochi. It's impossible for all of that shefa to come at one time. So therefore, he says it's necessary. Yaakov, Leah, Rachel, meaning Zer Anpin and the Nook. Ya'alo techila b'techilas tekel elyon. They'll start moving up when you say techilas tekel elyon. Go alam mehechel aratzon, and this is the very end of the introduction to the Shmona Esrei. He says that move up mehechel aratzon, the hechel kodesh kadosh and the Briyah. They move up into that space a little bit more, and it says al yedei alo techila the hechel kodesh kadoshim. And how does this happen? They go to this top heichel. This is the heichel of the top heichel of the top heichel. So this is the part of the top at the top. He says it moves into that place. Yuchel la'alos achar kach la'olam atzilus. And so therefore, from that place, they're able to move up to olam atzilus. Ki meheichel aratzon tzorach oj shlav. Because from the heichel aratzon, understand that even though the heichel aratzon is the very top of Briyah, and even though the Kachim is the very top of the Heichel Haratzon, even so, it's still not enough for it to be able to move up this Madrega. Ki Heichel Haratzon Tzorach Od Shlav. It needs another stage, Madrega, another level, being time between itself and its Silos. Ad Aliyah the Olam Atzilus, before it could get into its Silos. L'chein. Alo bein time the Heichel Kodesh Kedoshim the Briyah goes up into the Heichel Kodesh Kedoshim of Briyah. The Lizet Tiknu Rabbeinu Zal, the Rizal, the rabbis. So therefore, the rabbis established so that since the shefa that is coming from down below needs extra help to get into Briyah, get into Atzilus. It's in the top of Briyah and needs extra help to get into Atzilus. So therefore, we have this phrase Adni, referring to Olam HaBriyah. Sefasai tiftach, open up my mouth. And so this is the concept of bringing us up into Atzilus. Lomar pasuk zekan. So the rabbis established to say this pasuk. The Moshe Kasav Rav the El, like the rabbi said up above. Shepasuk zeh who connected heichel kodesh kedoshim the Briyah. It really refers to the heichel kodesh kedoshim, the heichel ratzon of Olam HaBriyah. And that's the shir for today. We saw quite a bit. This is Baruch Fleischman.